CES has come, and it brought things for Windows and Xbox. Happy Friday, friends. It's Friday. It is January. This is the first full week of January, and CES, I would say it's come and it has gone, and it unlike many years in the past, it really has delivered this year. There's a lot to be excited about if you're on the Windows side, and there's also a lot to be excited about this month if you're on the Xbox side. So there's a lot to dive into. So why don't we go ahead and do that? Hopefully you had a wonderful week. Let's kick it off here with a very expensive graphic that I spent many minutes creating here. So this week was a big week if you are a fan of Windows. There was quite literally a metric ton of news. AMD, Intel, Qualcomm, and NVIDIA all showed off either brand new PCs, either new chips, new GPUs, and it's really big. It's a really big deal. First off, AMD kicked things off, continuing to kill it in the x86 space with new high-end Zen 5 chips, and they've got chips for laptops, they've got chips for desktops, they've got new chips. If you're looking for new chips and you want to stay on x86, AMD Team Red is continuing to do exceptionally well. So well, in fact, that they're ramping up production to an even higher level, and they really credited their extra sales, not only because they're good products, but because Intel continues to not do super well. Also being announced are Qualcomm is introducing new chips that are basically going to usher in a $600 ARM laptop. So that's, again, a really big deal because that ARM saturation of the market, while it's far from taking any meaningful share on a percentage basis, it will slowly and continuously chip away at the mainstream market and just become ubiquitous. So by lowering that pricing floor, that is again, it's just a very big deal. NVIDIA showed up with multiple reasons to be excited if you're in the Windows community. Well, first off, the easy one are the 5000 series GPUs, and I think the 5070 is going to be where most people probably land if you have $549 dues to spare, because it's going to be the new mid-range king, I believe, until we get the official benchmarks from what Team Red has been doing. But either way, we would expect something like that. Now, they do promise 4090 level performance. However, take that with so much salt you might be in the Himalayas, because I believe that's for one real specific scenario. Across the board, a 4090 is still going to outperform a 5070. However, even getting some close to level of performance like that is a really, really big deal. And you cannot ignore that Intel was there. Intel announced a bunch of new chips, but they're still based on some of their older stuff. And it's not if you're building a desktop, I think most of us are going to probably choose Team Red at this point. Red, not looking at this graphic, red meaning AMD if you're listening, because Snapdragon kind of is also red, I guess. I should maybe qualify that a little bit. It is a little bit as well. But also Lenovo dropping these small form factor devices. And it's not just Lenovo. There were several others that are out there. But again, these are ARM-based devices. So I hesitate to call them Mac Mini competitors, but they are in that same smaller size footprint. And so again, this is just 1 week of announcements coming for Windows fans and enthusiasts. And that is not even all of CES. That is really just kind of starting to check into what's unique. There's a ton of different form factors and laptops as things that you probably won't buy, and we'll go into that here in a second. Probably the biggest thing not announced but announced, at least when it comes to chips, is on the NVIDIA side. So they have this thing called Project Digits, which is a collaboration between itself and MediaTek, who is known to make ARM CPUs. Typically, they would see up lower end is maybe where you would find them or something along those lines. However, NVIDIA CEO Jensen confirmed that there were, I should qualify that. They actually created a desktop PC, if you will. It's an AI-driven thing for you to test models and be all local and not have to use the cloud. But here's what's important as I jump around too much. NVIDIA CEO Jensen confirmed that they are working to create an end-user system on a chip, so an SoC, based on the just announced Project Digits home user AI supercomputer. That, my friends, sounds an awful lot like a Qualcomm Snapdragon-esque competitor, a device, a system on a chip, if you will, a CPU, if you want to get a little more technical. Actually, I should say it's probably less technical than a system on a chip, but it doesn't matter. It sounds like NVIDIA is very much on the cusp of releasing their desktop, or laptop, I should say, ARM-based Windows chip, and they said later this year. So that, That's just 1 week. Just 1 week, we get all smattering of good news and good stuff coming. If you're fans of ARM, I'm not going to say not buy a Qualcomm chip, but like if if you're just buying, well, if you're buying it as a novelty, just go buy whatever and then whatever. But like if you're looking for you're like waiting for this NVIDIA chip, I think we should all agree is probably worthwhile. I mean, NVIDIA's killing it in the GPU space and the AI space. They're what are they? The most powerful company? Powerful. High. They're over $1 trillion, highest valuation. I don't know if they're higher than Apple and Microsoft, but whatever. They are like up there. And so when they're coming to market with a new chip for Windows on ARM, that's a pretty darn big deal. And so that's super, super exciting. It's like you have all this stuff going on here. And then you come out and it's like, oh yeah, this is great. Then Surface is like, bam. You know what? We're gonna have a Surface event at the end of the month. Now, granted, this is not your consumer side. This was actually posted on LinkedIn, which should tell you the demographic that they are going after. But they say, get ready, join us for a Microsoft AI tour in NYC for major announcements from Surface for business. Mark your calendars because that's what you're going to be doing here at the end of the month. But yeah, that's going to be Lunar Lake, right? So if you remember in the fall, the last refresh that they did was all about ARM-based CPUs. So this is likely going to be Lunar Lake, Intel stuff. So the Surface Pro, Surface Laptop getting the latest gen, I shouldn't say latest, but most recent gen or more recent gen stuff from Intel at the end of the day. So that will be interesting to see if they come out with anything that's like outside of what we don't expect. However, on the inverse side of like good news coming out of CES, I'm going to give a big thumbs down to what Dell is doing. I'm not the first one to say like, Dell, what are you doing? So Dell is, if you're not familiar, getting rid of a bunch of like the common names that we've known, like the Dell XPS 13 has always been sort of like a benchmark, a baseline. Like it's just been a good laptop. Well, they're getting rid of that branding. So now they're going to have Dell. Like you can go get like the Dell Premium 13-inch. Like that is going to be the name of a product, and I say that trying not to die a little on the inside. Then there's going to be the Dell Pro. Then there's going to be the Dell Pro Max. So in theory, you can inside of each of these tiers, then there is Premium, Plus, and Base. So Base is the lowest, Plus is the middle, Premium. Like I see what they're trying to do. They're trying to simplify the SKUs. I get that, but the fact that you can now go buy a Dell Pro Max Premium is like, and we all know corporations are going to butcher this up because there's eventually, I would bet on, there's eventually going to be a Dell Pro Max Premium Plus PC, which is like a higher end of the premium. Is a Dell, I get it, but like the fact that there's just a Dell Plus, like that is the name of a laptop. Yeah. Anyways, they don't pay me to help them come up with things. They do their own things and whatever. Here we are at the end of the year. Speaking of end of the year, so end of 2025 is going to be a big deal. So much so that Microsoft is declaring that 2025 is the year of the Windows 11 PC refresh. So they're starting their big marketing push again to remind everybody that on October 14th of 2025, Windows 10 will reach its end of life unless you start paying some dollar dues. So just remember that. And I expect that Microsoft's going to get even more aggressive. We've already seen these full screen ads on Windows 10 say, upgrade to Windows 11. Right, those things that are real annoying. I don't think Microsoft is going to be backing away from those anytime soon. So keep your eyes and ears peeled for what they might or might not be doing there. But I think it's fair to say they're probably going to be ramping that up, turning that dial up to 11, if you will, trying to get people over to Windows 11 before Windows 10 reaches its end of life. This also seems to somewhat subtly indicate that maybe Windows 12 is not coming this year, right? Not that there were big, hard, heavy rumors that it was, but the fact that they're promoting Windows 11, they didn't say the big Windows refresh, but Windows 11 specifically would make that seem like it. Now, wrapping up the tech news here that's most important to you that is not on the happy side. There are layoffs happening at Microsoft. I indicated that, I think, a couple weeks ago in this podcast. And so, yeah, they're coming to fruition. They don't sound like they're massive and widespread. Microsoft is quite literally saying they're low performers. So that's whatever. They're being cut. And so Microsoft is making that known right now. So why don't we jump on over to the gaming news, because there was a lot of gaming news this week as well. Let's just kick it off with the biggest thing that was announced this week. Developer Direct coming January 23rd. A bunch of titles. The one there's South of Midnight, there's Expedition 33, and the one I'm most looking forward to, being a typical first-person shooter player, is Doom: The Dark Ages. Hopefully we'll get some more details about the arrival of that title, but we'll see some more about that. Microsoft is also teasing a brand new game, by the way, at this, so that we have not heard of or known about, right? So yeah, we will see what they have up their sleeve for that. It is what it is, right? I'm happy to see that. Speaking of games, by the way, there are a ton of new handhelds coming to market, notably the Lenovo Legion Go S. One of the notable things about this is that it'll also be able to run Steam OS. So Steam OS is now going out onto third-party devices. And yeah, this, I think, gets a little problematic for Windows, right? Not initially. I got to do like more a refined, nuanced conversation about this. But SteamOS has the capacity and ability to eventually eat the lunch of what Windows does, if Microsoft doesn't respond accordingly in getting their stuff in gear and out into the market. But anyways, so this was going on. This is you can run Windows on this. Do not fret about that. This looks like there's more handhelds just coming to market running with these AMD Zen Z2 Go processors, and it's the whole enchilada, right? They continue to get better. They continue to improve. And so, we'll continue to see here. But at this event, Jason Ronald was there, and this is really what drove a lot of the Xbox news conversation this week. He says Microsoft will combine Xbox and Windows experiences for handheld PCs this year, and I believe it's going to be happening later this year at the end of the day. But later this year, these things are going to be coming together, because right now Xbox is a disjointed experience. Not disjointed the experience, but it's disjointed because it's on a console versus the experience that you get on the PC. And what they're doing is they're bringing all that together. In a separate quote by Jason, he talks about bringing all of your library with you, which is not something you can do right now. So the way my simple brain thinks about it right now is, we all know the Xbox dashboard. I suspect that dashboard is just going to be ubiquitous. That's going to be the same dashboard on your console, same dashboard eventually running on your PC and or third-party Xbox device. You'll eventually be able to get it maybe on a mobile device, and then all your titles are just available wherever you are, not always by streaming, but I mean like native, especially on the PC side. I suspect the next generation of games are going to be, Xbox games and Windows games are like the same thing. Same experiences across the board, front to back. Also, something shouting out from GameFile. So there's been some Call of Duty documents filed lately in the public realm, and they were able to uncover how much money was spent by Activision to build 3 recent Call of Duty titles. So Black Ops 3 cost $450 million dues. Modern Warfare cost $460 million dues, and Black Ops Cold War cost $700 million to develop. Now, Black Ops Cold War, actually of all those titles, according to the documentation that was found, was actually sold the worst at only 30 million units, which they still should have probably come out well ahead, obviously, on that. But it just goes to show, if you are a company trying to come into the FPS space, you are going up, how do you compete? So I think we've seen X Defiant, we've seen a bunch of other titles try to come and go in this arena. You can't. So realistically, the only way you can compete is you create a niche of a popular title or a popular style of play, and maybe try to exploit that. But if you try to compete feature and functionality to Activision or to Call of Duty, you can't, unless you're willing to put $1 billion on the line, which I don't think anybody is in this day and age, given how some big titles have gone. And so that really just goes to show the content factory that is behind these things. Now, it's important to note that these numbers are for the entire life cycle of the game. That's not to get it out the door, but that is the entire life cycle of the game. Is $700 million for Cold War. That is a crazy amount of numbers. I don't know why the screen behind me just blipped, but whatever. So, all right. Whew, that's the CES nutshell news when it comes to Windows and Xbox. That's most important. Now we get to talk to my favorite part of the conversation. That are the questions. That is the questions of the week. Let's dive in. Codgart says, "B-Rad. Hope you're keeping warm." Hope you are keeping warm. So we got 13 inches of snow on Sunday and Monday. We're supposed to get 3 to 4 more today, and that's going to be ridiculous. But anyways, here we go. 2 questions. I don't think you own a Steam Deck or any handheld console. Are you waiting for a specific one, or are handhelds just not your thing? as of right now, handhelds are just not my thing. I am a classic I almost said 39 and a half year old millennial who just likes to sit on the couch and game. And so like to me, playing a game, sitting in an office chair on a mobile device, I don't fly enough. And when I'm playing with a family, my family, not a family. And so like buying one to play on the back of a plane, I don't fly enough and I don't travel enough for that. And so I just still like to sit my butt on the couch and just use the biggest screen possible. It's not that I have anything like holistically against them. It's just not me. That tends to be, maybe I'm wrong, a younger generation's thing than myself. It says, what advice would you give for someone looking to start a podcast? My advice would be to never stop. That's the thing, right? How many podcasts have come and gone? Don't do it. If you do it for the money, you're going to stop. If you do it for any reason other than like, I just want to like make some content and see if I can make some people happy or listen, you will go much farther than anybody who's trying to make a means or a living doing this, because unless you have the full production studio and the marketing budget and the advertising budget, the best thing you can deliver if you don't have big budgets behind you is consistency. Quality can come and go. Like this podcast is literally a one-man band of quality, if you want to call it that. And so start small, be consistent, and just don't stop. Just don't stop. Just have fun. Go talk to yourself. It's therapy or something like that is how somebody would probably describe it, because I think it probably is. Mr. PKI with a couple questions into the hopper. It says, do you like the name Xbox Prime? Oh, I forgot to mention that earlier. So there was a leak called the next version of Xbox is coming in 2026. It's going to be called the Prime. Now, Jess Corden did say that the Prime name is not related. I do not know, but either way, it looks like the next Xbox will be coming in the next few years, which does sound a bit crazy. But at the end of the day, I think we can. Maybe we can't all agree, but hopefully most of us agree. The console hard generations are gone, right? We're now a melting pot of generation. Call of Duty Black Ops 6 was made for the Xbox One and PlayStation 4. That's really, and it's been 5 years since the new generation of consoles has been released. The populations on those consoles are so large that they're still willing to play to that demographic and that quality and hardware spec, that they're willing to forego higher end systems, specialty features, if you will, whatever you want to call it, because they can't ignore that potential revenue. So yeah. Prime, I think, is an interesting name. I suspect, my guess is that Prime right now would be a code name, because right, if we're 2 years away, a year and a half away, maybe Prime, but to me that sounds more like a code name than anything else. And he says, does that mean we'll get a discount on Amazon Prime? I suspect Amazon may have issues with that, but we'll see. Mr. PKI says, on his second question, he says, one of the challenges with the changes you made to the podcast for the Sam's Report and the others are they are now an unknown music category. Is this maybe a metadata problem that can be fixed? So here's the interesting question of the two podcasts you were referring to. Nothing has changed on the RSS feed. It's just been how I've been recording. With the one change, the only other change is that I'm using Clipchamp, which maybe isn't applying metadata, but that I don't think has changed. But the RSS feeds, nothing has changed on that end. So I am actually not sure, to be honest. Sydney2K says, Happy New Year, Brad. With Apple's failure of the Vision Pro VR headset, where do you see the future of VR AR? Does this sound like the death knell of a mass consumer market? Was it worth Apple stealing all those technicians from HoloLens? Well, it's too early to say one way or another. I don't think it's an outrageous thought that many of us would like to buy a thin pair of glasses, keyword there being thin, that has the functionality to put things into the lenses. What technology is not there yet, but I think that's where we envision the market hopefully getting to in some capacity. I don't think that is a controversial thought. Now, the challenge with Apple Vision Pro is that it's $3,500. It's more of a moonshot at this point, and it almost feels like Microsoft is guilty of this. All companies are guilty of this. It's like they wanted to get something in the space so that they could eventually start to grow their own market, if that makes sense, right? So they have things going on. They have apps being built, and they have hardware in incubation. Oh, anyways, I had to cut there because my kid barged in here. Anyways, I I don't think it's wasted, and I don't think it's too early to say. Apple has so much money at the end of the day that putting dollars towards another moonshot that may or may not materialize is like I shouldn't say a rounding error, but it's critical for them because they don't want to miss the next market, right? They dominated the smartphone market. If the glasses and headsets materialize, they don't want to be left behind. And so for right now, it's way too early, but it is definitely, I think, pretty far away from mass market. So the Joe Finn says, Switch 2 leaks make it seem like the form factor will remain largely the same. At the same time, it seems like Windows gaming handhelds are hot new form factor device makers are experimenting with. Is this the dockable handheld, the inevitable form factor for consoles? Interesting question. So first off, Switch 2 looks like it's going to land sometime first quarter this year, or maybe first half, I should say. I thought the rumors were April or something like that. Keeping the same form factor, which shouldn't be shocking. The Switch sold exceptionally well. Why would you change the formula? Although Nintendo tends to do that, change the formula, but maybe they're keeping it a little bit more conservative with their changes this time around because of how well things did, and like, why would we try to do something different? And Joe Finn's point here is like, hey, all these Windows handhelds are more so adopting that Switch form factor, which could be broadly described as just a handheld, right? Even you could go back to the Sega, oh god, what was the Sega? I wouldn't call it Sega Dreamcast. That is the wrong one. The Sega, I can't think of the name, the Sega handheld that was huge and required, what was it, like 6 AA batteries and only worked for 2 hours. Oh god, I cannot think of that name. I'm sure somebody will write it down in the comments. So it's not like the Switch pioneered any form factor. And let's be real, there's only so many ways you can put controllers on a screen, and the Switch took one that worked well for them, and so everybody else is following that model, which I don't think is a bad thing. Is this the inevitable form factor? I think what will be the inevitable form factor will be the thing that takes off and sells exceptionally well. So if they could get enough, the only reason I'm hesitating is that the console that sits under the TV in my living room and many living rooms around the world is more powerful than what you can currently cram into a handheld. Now, there's a lot of things going on there because right now getting 1080p gaming on a handheld is pretty reasonable. However, we're starting to see 4K consoles. And so there has to be a balance of like how much power versus like what you do on the handheld, because right, those are a bit at odds with each other in some meaningful way. I continue to think we will see, at least for the next generation, a traditional console. Maybe in the future, I see where you're headed with this, like, hey, the console is just the form factor and just dock it, and that's just how it's going to be. We'll see. I think it remains largely unknown about Microsoft's true ambitions. Sony's is maybe a little more easier. I don't see Sony completely giving up on the traditional PC, or the traditional console, because again, they need to make the money from revenue and from hardware. So yeah, it's a good thought though. Like it's something that I don't think is unreasonable at this point. However, I think we'll continue to see sort of a divergence of just traditional consoles at large, right? We think Microsoft is about to go through a pretty significant evolution. We'll have to see what Sony does at the end of, the next cycle or something like that. So anyways, first sort of real podcast of 2025 is now behind us. Yes, there was a previous one, but like the CES, there's a lot going on. Super interesting stuff to be covering. And as always, my friends, thanks for tuning in. We'll catch all of you right back here next time.